podcast. We've got an exciting guest for you guys this week. Bianca Guimaraes is a founding partner and executive creative director at Mischief No Fixed Address. And you guys know them as a fast-growing, hot independent agency based in New York. She is widely recognized as a maverick in the advertising industry for creating provocative, culturally impacting campaigns that push boundaries. Originally from São Paulo, she began her career as a junior art director before moving to New York to join J. Walter Thompson. Prior to founding Mischief in 2020, during the pandemic, she spent 6 years at BBDO New York, where she rose to senior vice president and creative director. Some notable campaigns that you may already be familiar with is the creative force between several high-profile projects, including the Sandy Hook's Promise, Back to School Essentials, for which you won an Emmy. Thinx, the MENstruation campaign, Monica Lewinsky, anti-bullying initiatives like The Epidemic, and recent Mischief hits provocative work such as VILF, Send Nudes, and Bless Your, well, I don't know, can we say this word on YouTube? Bless Your Cooch. Almost feels weird coming out of my mouth, but go ahead.
No, I promise we just don't do those kinds of ideas. You pick three that all have like some sort of like sex, flesh, like, jokes.
Well, hey, Mischief, right? You guys are being naughty from time to time, so I'm here for it. So, other industry recognitions: she has won more than 100 international creative awards throughout the industry. She's been on top creative lists, named Business Insider's 30 most creative people in advertising under 30 4 times. Ad Age is 40 under 40. 2024 honors. She was recently named Creative Director of the Year by both Ad Age and Campaign US. She is a dedicated champion for women and diverse talent in advertising. She actively mentors emerging talent through platforms like the 3% Conference, the One Club, the Pratt Pro Imagination Expo. Her mission at Mischief is to build the diverse creative department that she once dreamed of working for, focusing on nurturing the next generation of industry leaders. Bianca, thanks so much. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my honor.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, we've got a lot of young people who watch the show. I know, you have a passion for nurturing the next generation of creative talent. So I always like to start at the beginning. Obviously, Brazil is a creative powerhouse. We seem to have so many creative people in the industry that join us from Brazil. So I'd love to hear a little bit about where you grew up, what you study, and how'd you get into the industry originally before you made your way stateside to some of those iconic shops.
I grew up in Brazil, in São Paulo. I left Brazil in 2009, which is that 16 years. I'm bad at math.
Sounds about right.
That leads to the answer of to the question of how did I end up in this business? It was a process of elimination. I always say this, but when we have to choose what we're going to do, or if I feel like we're just so young and still have no idea what it is that we want, or most people. I was one of those that just knew what I didn't want to do. And advertising. I thought it was, to be honest, I didn't really know exactly what it was, how it worked. It was a bit of that sounds fun. I would like to do TV commercials. But it wasn't until I started studying it that I understood what it was. And then I was really lucky to fall in love with it. And my first job in advertising was I interned at a small agency in São Paulo while I was in college. So I did that for, I think 6 months, and got hired at that small agency. Stayed there for another year or so. And then when I moved to a bigger agency, graduated college. And then after maybe another year, I came to the States and been here since.
Yeah, it's wild. I've talked to some other Brazilian creative directors, and one of the things they mentioned is, you have to kind of punch above your weight class in Brazil because there's less channels to program, smaller budgets, so it kind of forces you to be creative. I wonder, is there anything about the Brazilian creative culture that's led us to so many award-winning creative directors and so many people from the industry? Do you think there's something about the culture or the market that leads itself to be a fertile ground for, folks to come to the US market and do so well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's about the like working with what you have, having to be scrappy, just in general, just in life, and not having to, sometimes systems don't work there well, or like things aren't like properly functioning. So you have to figure out a way to make it work. And just that mentality just kind of comes with a lot, the way we deal with things, for the good and for the bad. Sometimes, we find ways around rules and all that stuff, which is not the best. But I do think that in general, it's like a very creative, forward. We have a lot of creative forward thinkers in Brazil, and it's a very visual place also, and like lots of different, like Brazilians don't, you don't look at Brazilian and be like, oh, you look very Brazilian. It's kind of like, it's a bunch of people from different backgrounds together, and I think that's just kind of like says something about the way the references and the way everybody is exposed to a lot of different cultures. So I also think that the way in the advertising agency itself, the way things are approached, you do have, as an art director, you are taught to kind of like do almost like final looking art to show the client. So you spend a lot of time honing your skills and like your design capabilities. So when I came to the States, I remember that I was like, okay, as a junior, I could really contribute to that part of it. And then they could see that I could also do more and like add value, but I had access to contribute to like projects right away with that. And then that was my entry point to being able to show my conceptual side. And I think that is the case with a lot of Brazilian, especially art directors, where like the books look so nice and the craft is so elevated that immediately people see, the Brazilian art director kind of becomes like, synonym with stuff is going to look really great. And like, just, it will be, it's like a lot of craft.
Yeah. And I've noticed that, a lot of the Brazilian creative directors that I've interviewed, they can't be idle. It seems like they're always working on side projects, whether it's like artistry or, like books,
Yeah.
or, just doing projects for the agency to market the agency, or doing spec projects. Like, it just seems like, they always stay busy, whether they're like, working on a project officially for the agency or not. Do you think there's kind of a scrappiness there where, you just always you're always creating, you're always making?
We're very passionate people, I think. It's like, really warm. Like we feel things, we love things. Like, it's hard to find a Brazilian in advertising that's kind of like, nah, just kind of doing this for like people are like intense and like they want, so you live and breathe the thing. And I think that's probably why there's like so many Brazilians, like even in New York and the States, abroad, just in general in the community, because people are really determined and really love advertising and what we do, and kind of like go above and beyond. Like you said, if I'm not getting like to produce something in my job that's fulfilling me, I'm going to do a side project and I'm going to hustle. And like, you're kind of like used to going after the things you want and not just kind of like having them just from, multiple reasons, but like how we're brought up and culturally in Brazil too, that I think a lot of that shows. And yeah, I believe that especially in our profession, where there's a lot of resilience that we have to have, that comes a lot. Like that is something that really, really helps when you're really invested, when you're passionate, when you can be scrappy, you can deal with all the changes that are happening all the time.
I've met guys like Daniel Portuga at Razorfish, who like literally like moved to the UK and he didn't speak like a word of English. Were you already fairly fluent in English? Like, did you grow up with it or study it in school?
I did grow up studying in school. Like, obviously, like I'm much better now when I arrive. Like, I still talk to a lot of friends, coworkers from JWT, which is my first agency here, and they joke about like, you came such a long way from like purely just being able to like express yourself and like have a conversation. And because it was just funny that I always joke that when I moved here, I was like, I need to leave my personality aside for a bit. I'm just going to try to communicate from like a job standpoint, right? I'm like trying to like communicate my ideas, try to like not make mistakes that are kind of that are that would just make things awkward, because as I try to kind of like be myself and make jokes, it was like, it's not landing, people are not understanding, or I don't understand what you're like, there was miscommunication. So I was like, okay, let's let that aside for a bit. And then I could at some point, I was like, okay, I think I can communicate, let me try to now be myself again. So it was a barrier. You have to convey ideas. It's even in your own language, sometimes you're like, I don't have this figured out or thought through, and I'm just gonna talk about something that's not fully formed and I don't know exactly what it is. And then there's like all the terminologies, there's all the culture in general of like, our work is so based on also like cultural context, and all that stuff was something that I had to adapt to. References, local references, all of that. Yes, you study, advertising, and you see the famous ads that like are global, but it's not the same as having grown up and seen like all the things, all the movies, all the all the things that people here have.
Yeah, I remember a Brazilian creative director told me one time he was on a call with like a very big CPG food brand, and he was trying to reference the idea of food porn, right? Like the idea where you're on Instagram and you're seeing these like amazing pictures of food, and food porn is kind of like a common terminology, even though it's a little bit crass. And he was calling it porn food. In the call with the client, and like he's in this meeting room and he's talking into the speakerphone, and like all his colleagues are like, oh my god, it's not porn food, it's food porn. And he was like, what's the difference?
I mean, I've done that. Like I do like a lot of the like Bob Sponge, it's SpongeBob, like you do like that is like basic. But I tell this funny story also with my first brief at JWT was Pepcid, the heartburn medicine. But I didn't know Pepcid, and I thought it was Pepsi because I hadn't seen it. So they were just like, we're going to brief you on Pepcid. I was like, okay, great, Pepsi. I'm going to be briefed on Pepsi. Which shows like even how unaware I was of things, because you usually know which accounts, which agencies have. And I was like, okay, Pepsi, sure. And I started, and this brief started, and they were talking about heartburn, and I was like, okay, probably like, we're going to have to like deal with the fact that Pepsi is giving some people heartburn, and we have to address it. And I swear, like, it was like, 10 minutes in that I was like, okay, we're not talking about Pepsi, we're talking about Pepsi. So yeah, it's a language barrier.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, so tell me about kind of the moment coming to the end of your time at BBDO. Like, what got you thinking about the idea that maybe you would want to be part of a startup agency and be a founder of an agency? And tell me about the circumstances that led to the start of Mischief, because you guys have obviously been on a pretty amazing creative tear as far as press and awards and just winning really cool pieces of business and doing really great work since you guys launched. So I'd be curious just to hear a little bit of the backstory and a little bit of the early days, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, at the time it was a pandemic, right? So I wasn't thinking about starting a business. But when Greg reached out saying that he was going to start an agency, and if me and Kevin wanted to kind of like join, him and start this thing, we're like, I mean, that sounds pretty awesome. We're going to probably learn a bunch of things that we wouldn't otherwise if we just take like, we stay here, or if we take a job somewhere else, a bunch of stuff that like I'm still learning to this day, including trying to remember what EBITDA is. But we were like, the worst that's going to happen is it doesn't work out. We learned a bunch of stuff, and we kind of like, try to go to another place and try to look for another job, which during the pandemic, you can think it's like, okay, that's a lot, but
it's a little bit risky, right?
Yeah, but the upside like felt so much more exciting, and doing something with Greg and Kevin felt, which were two people that I really respect and have same vision, or like have same sensibilities in terms of like the kind of work that we like to do. I was like, okay, it feels like this is something that I want to do. And and then the stars aligned, and we got like a good group of people that really loved each other and did well together, because we didn't actually end up meeting all the partners until like maybe 6 months in. Some of the some
Wow.
in person. Obviously, me, Kevin, and Greg knew each other, but not the rest.
Yeah, that's wild. So it's like you literally, you heard these stories during the pandemic of people who changed jobs or young people who entered the workforce, and then they literally never met their colleagues, for like a year. They saw them for the first time and they had been on Zoom calls and all these things. But, that's a little bit different than like starting an agency, right? It's like even the principal folks, obviously you had some familiarity with your immediate co-founders, but it sounds like there was a lot of people who are kind of brought together in real time and had never met each other. So what was it like when you guys first all came back together, when it was, when that opportunity presented itself?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, like, it can sound really scary also to start something that way, but if it wasn't during the pandemic, like probably the first thing that you think when you're going to start something is like a physical location for you to get to start an agency, and like a rent that you're still going to start to pay without having
Yeah.
clients, and none of that was the case. And so you didn't need to have like the coolest office, the like means to go travel to the client and do presentations, and like who had the best like pitch video. Like it was really about just kind of like this you, and kind of like what you can bring to the table from like just your ideas and who you, and the work. So that really kind of like leveled the playing field and was something that actually helped. But in terms of meeting people, I mean, it was, besides being like, I thought you were super tall, I thought you were super short. It was awesome. We feel like we were like, I think when we got to finally kind of celebrate and really be together and be like, holy shit, we did this, and we had like a moment to breathe. It was the first year that Ken came back after the
Oh
pandemic.
yeah.
We got
That was the
together. I
first
mean,
time I went to camp.
yeah, we had met in person before, but we kind of like just that moment had the time to kind of like really spend time with each other and really kind of and celebrate a little. But it just felt like we all knew each other, and it just felt natural at the same time to me, because we were spending more time with each other than with our own families on Zooms. So
Yeah, that's wild. All right. We talked a little bit about mentorship, and that it's been an important, feature of your leadership style, wanting to mentor women and other diverse talents. One of the things that a lot of people are getting a little bit, I suppose, up in arms about as it pertains to AI is that, kind of the first jobs that AI is potentially disrupting are like entry level jobs. It is things that we used to call like grunt work, right? Like, all these agencies have entry level jobs that tend to be, things that aren't always the most fun to do, like creating boards or comps or whatever the case may be. But now AI is kind of like accelerating that process quite a bit. So, how are you guys thinking about continuing that, that creative stewardship of like the next generation of creatives, and how you guys bring in talent, with, also the demands from clients to leverage some of these new tools to cut costs and do things faster?
yeah, I mean, I don't want to undermine the changes that AI is already bringing to our industry, but like if anything, is just kind of like making the bar a little higher, because now they have the tools
Mm,
to show their ideas. So just kind of like the ones that have promise and can think will kind of like get more noticed, and will be above the the others. But I think in general, we're still going to need people to be working with AI to get to the right places. And so, sure, like we might need like less people to do like some busy work. We're gonna need people, and like people are going to be needing to like push to kind of like show up above the like the sort of like sameness of a content that's going to be generated. So you still need entry-level people that can generate something different than what everybody's generating. We can never let that the entry level die, and it's our responsibility to continue making sure that is very possible that that's around. Someone gave me a job when my books sucked. Like I look back and I was like, what? I don't understand how I got that job. It really was really bad, but we just have to continue believing in people, and I think that's kind of like very natural for people in our industry. So I'm positive.
Do you feel like are agencies looking at talent who are coming in at the entry level side? Are they looking at their ability to be creators first? Like, are they looking to see if they have built a following on a social platform? Have they been able to, do something creative out in channels and actually like attract audiences? You kind of hear this idea of like the in-house influencer, the in-house creator at agencies. Is that something that you guys look for or care about?
I don't think it's the one thing I'm focusing on. I think I'm still looking for, is this person thinking strategically? Can they really get to an interesting answer to a problem and think in a way that feels new or different? I think that the whole, influencers in general was like something that also kind of like, started happening a while ago, and everybody was like, "Ooh, like what's going to happen to creatives?" And like, this what we're going to be looking for. But we all know that, it's different things, and I'm glad that there's space for all the different people. I've experienced and seen people, but hiring also people that are more like influencers and know how to do like content, but then like end up coming to the agency world and like not thriving in the same way, depending on like, what it is. The realities are like how to solve a brief. So I believe that it's just important to just make sure that you're working with people that are open to the changes and are open to kind of like different approaches and understand all of the things and how they work. But I'm not looking for like, prove me that you can create your own content before you come here, because I still believe that we should work with a lot of different production partners to be bringing ideas to life as well. So I think there's a place for everybody.
I love that. Yeah. You still, just because you can build an audience on TikTok doesn't necessarily mean you can make a, high quality video or ad for television style formats and, great boards and great experiential activations or creative ideas in digital. Like there's still quite a few canvases to paint on, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Mischief philosophy. I read a quote that you guys have this, how the F did you sell that factor? You become somewhat famous for the Mischief review, where you ask a client to say those exact words. How do you prepare a client for that level of risk even before you show them work?
It's just because we don't do like your typical like, ta-da, here's the work. Like, isn't it great? Actually, yeah, we joke. We're like more of like an aha agency versus like the ta-da, because we really, and it could sound like a bit kind of like sure or cheesy, but we get there together with our clients. We don't sell anything. We will like be very close to them during the strategic process, because we really believe that we have to like spend the most time trying to figure out what we're saying, and then we can move on to kind of like how we say that. So on the what is kind of like where we're gonna do a lot of like the homework and make sure that we're on the same page with the clients. So by the time we get to like, here's what it is, it almost feels like an obvious solution to what we all talked about. So I think that's like in a nutshell how we approach it and how we're able to work with our clients and get them to be comfortable with the ideas. Because there's like a lot to it, but like in a nutshell.
You're taking a little bit of the, the mystique of the pitch process and the razzle and dazzle and like
Oh yeah, no, it's
kind of
not like that.
the stunt of the pitch. Like
Yeah,
you hear about these crazy stunts where, clients will spend all this money to bring people into a room and bring props and like have all these weird things created that never have anything to do with the work, and they have a lot to do with the pitch. But sometimes, I've heard at least from clients that sometimes the agencies are more creative on the pitch than they are on the work. So you don't want the
yeah.
pitch to like overshadow,
That's the thing.
what you're actually going to be delivering, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot like there's so much energy that gets put on pitching that like it's energy that you could have been putting towards, taking care of the clients that you have already and growing horizontally. Like a lot of our growth comes as horizontal growth. I think the whole thing about pitching is great when it feels right, and I'm like we're not opposed to it, but I think that it's very important to make sure that you are putting the same energy doing the thing that we are, on your day to day work, and then I don't know. We don't love also the kind of like let's wow the client, let's bring a bunch of freelancers, and then it's kind of like that's not going to be their day to day team. That's not going to be what
Yeah.
they're promised. Like put all the great people in here, and then we're going to show the clients the work. But ultimately, that's going to lead to disappointment after when they don't see that, and then you lose the client, then you have to pitch again. So it's like that cycle that we don't believe in, and like when we pitch is because we will have the energy to take on a client that we can then be really close to, and they will see us like that team that's pitching is the team that they're going to have. It's not a bait and switch situation.
Yeah. Freelancers are kind of cheating if they're not going to stay in the business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You've also have a quote called comfortable is a choice, another mantra. You've said that in a world of clutter, being safe is actually a risky move that a brand can make. How do you distinguish between, a campaign that's shocking for the sake of shock value and something that's more strategic provocation, if I said that right, that actually can, provoke ideas, provoke different thinking, and most importantly, drive results?
I mean, I think it's really like about the strategic thinking behind it, and like you mentioned send nudes when we started
I
our
love that
chat.
one.
That wasn't like a random pun that we were like, oh, let's just like noodles, like let's just send nudes for a craft. That was the pandemic. Like everybody felt so disconnected. Everybody was looking for comfort food. The shelves were empty, like at the supermarket, especially of like, mac and cheese. And people were looking for ways to have a little fun, to like connect with each other and and to me, like that feels like it's not like it's not for the sake of being like, oh, let's say nudes. It's appropriate for the moment. There's a reason, and like it really aligns with the brief and the new audience that Craft is asking that we reach. So same with VILF that you also mentioned, and it's kind of like for OkCupid, it's like voters. I'd like to F. I don't know if I can say the whole word here. So
Hey, you can say whatever you want. This is an adult
uh,
show.
and yes, that's right. I just hope my kid won't ever watch it. No.
That too, yeah.
No. But it was based on real data point that we found that people that said on OkCupid that they are voters, they were more likely to get a match. So like we just kind of like brought that to life, and it's at that point you're not like it's not a joke for the sake of it. It's like it's a real thing that like we found from real behavior. So again, that's like a long way of saying strategy, cultural context, what truth about the product. Everything that we do is based on that, and there's like a lot of rigor behind it. So yeah, it's more responsible than it looks.
No, I love it. I think, it's, of course, starting with an insight that is human and true and representative of a customer insight that you've discovered, but bringing it to life in a way that, it's great when you have those moments because they do become bigger than just an ad. They become a campaign. They become a PR moment. They become an earned opportunity for the client to get a lot of free attention outside of just the media that they're buying. So I think in some ways, like if you do it to the level where, it seems like well placed, it's like there's a line for sure. But when you can, it's like, that's the magic, I think, is like straddling that line.
Yeah. Yeah. for sure. By the way, are you hearing this music behind me or no?
The trumpets? Oh, just a little bit. No, it's fine. So
someone's birthday. It's someone's
oh, I was
birthday.
gonna ask you.
Ed Gunn, shout out, one
Let's
of our
go. Happy birthday, Ed.
directors. And apparently someone like called in like sort of like a marching band, and it's
Let's go. Yeah, no, I thought maybe you guys were editing something back there.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So you've obviously worked at some really big shops. What's the biggest difference from spending a good portion of your career in big agency and now kind of going back to the independent model? Is there a key differentiator that you see?
I mean, I loved my time at the big agencies. Like, I had the best opportunities. I had great people that I matched that shaped me, that supported me. So it was awesome. I think like as you start becoming get into a leadership position, you just feel really handcuffed, and you don't get to kind of like make the choice sometimes that you want to make or that are the right choices. And I think just having being in a position that we're able to do it is something that I think is it's just invaluable. So and that's something that I really can't see it another way anymore now. So just being able to kind of like right the wrongs and do it the way that we feel like it should be done.
I love that. I've talked to other creative leaders who's talked about this idea that the creative side of agencies is one of the strangest parts of how you like rise up in your career, that like you get rewarded for doing really creative things and putting really creative work out into the world and winning awards and being creative. Your reward is getting to manage other people versus doing more creativity. I wonder, how have you dealt with that, especially as now a partner at an agency? Do you feel like that's just kind of how it's going to have to be? Like, because that's the only way that people can rise up, is that they get taken out of the work and they have to be more creative stewards of a team and kind of, keep their eyes on, more projects and kind of pop in and out. But it feels like that must be an even different moment when you start your own agency.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, like I got distracted for a second because there was someone in the background, but he was talking about more of the AI kind of coming in and shaping this, right?
No, like more about the idea of like as you grow in your career, your reward is less actual opportunity to do creative things and do work. It's more managing people.
Got it.
And I wonder if that's even more accelerated when you become a partner at an agency and an owner. And now you got to worry about, like you were talking about, EBITDA and finance and HR and all these other things that have nothing to do with how you got into the business originally.
Yeah. And I think this kind of answer kind of goes back a little about like to the previous question, because like being a leader in an independent agency or something that like, you're a part owner it's different because you get to, it feels rewarding, and in a way that might be, let me start over. If you're like kind of like a leader, maybe in like a company where you don't necessarily can make the calls, or you're really bogged down by kind of like a lot of the parts of the job that you don't like because it has to be that way. So it's, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of like just kind of like client relationship, like it's not really about the work because that's not the focus of the place. Then yes, this position can become that way, and you get far from the work, and you get like not, you might not be what you started in this business for. But here, I feel like beyond being still close to the work, I get to like do something that feels really rewarding, which is help other people get there, shape a place that could be shaping, just how advertising is kind of like how people see advertising now, and kind of like, the sort of like modern independent agency. You get to help other people find their voices and like what they like to do. So it just feels like, yes, you change a little bit about like, it's not anymore about like my idea, like this was like came from my brain and now it has a lion and like I love, or events or whatever, like, the many great award shows. but it kind of goes from that to, okay, I feel like I'm starting to shape something bigger, or I'm starting to kind of like help shape what this brand is about, because you're playing a different role, but at least like having that role at Mischief, I still get to do a little bit of a little bit of everything, and I also like the learning the business side of things, and I get interested in it. So yes, it's not what I would want to do like for the entirety of my day, but I do think it's like I do get interested by like learning, kind of being closer to the scope, to the to the way we to just every new business opportunity, to all of the things. So
Yeah, it's a different type of creativity, right? Being a business
yeah.
owner, an agency owner. All right, let's talk about a little bit about cultural anthropology. You've been called a cultural engineer. How does your team stay ahead of kind of the vibe shift, so you feel like work is steering conversations rather than trying to join into trends?
I mean, that's always the goal. And the brands that like when you have a good relationship with your client, you can do that versus just kind of like be following. And I think we've certainly got to places where clients kind of like recognize that, and we were able to do things that felt like you're not just following, which is to me the best case scenario, and super powerful. We try to do that. We try to do that way more than trying to catch up. In terms of the work, are you thinking more in terms of like Mischief in general?
No, I think the work is important, right? It's like they're obviously brands are in this really tough position these days where like they have to evaluate every cultural moment, everything that's happening that's trending inside of social media, everything that's happening in trending inside of culture. They have to decide where they stand in the world from a political or mission or ethics based position. Brands are expected to talk about their culture and their values. So it feels like it's a lot for brands to kind of react to versus sometimes thinking about the strategic thing that can like start the conversation or
Yeah.
start the trend versus reacting to what the world is throwing at
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I feel like it's the wrong approach is to try to like react to everything. And if you don't have a very solid foundation and know exactly what your voice is and what you stand for, which is kind of like what we try to help our clients to build, and big platforms, know exactly what you stand for, like where you are in like and not just kind of like your voice, but also like where you belong, then it's really easy for you to know what you react to and what you don't. Because I don't believe that like even when you talk about organic social, I don't believe like just kind of like, oh, Taylor Swift just launched an album, let's quickly kind of like make a little joke and Photoshop a thing and put it on. Like I think that just contributes to the slop, and like that's just gonna be like even more of it with AI now. I think it's really about like strategy, know what your brand really stands for, know what your objectives are, and what your voice is, what your platform is. And then you'll become much more, it will become simpler for you to know what really you should be reacting to, or where you should be playing.
Yeah, you can build culture rather than react to it.
Yeah.
Um, Mischief has been known for the power of no, for you guys to be being selective with partners, and you guys turned down business. My last agency that I was at for 9 years. My first agency, we never fired a client ever. We would always take the work. We would always get it done. Sometimes even at a loss, and even if it meant burning through teammates. At my last agency, we fired a client for the first time, just because it wasn't the right fit. The chemistry wasn't good. And even though they offered us the campaign and the scope a second time and the money was good, my CEO turned it down. You guys almost have a track record for like saying no to as many things as you guys say yes to. How important is it for agencies to know that they have the power to say no? And what is it that you guys look for as far as red flags where you say, this just isn't for you?
Yeah. Yeah. We like to say that like what we say yes to defines us, but what we say no to shapes us. And that's because
Mm,
it's really because um, people say like, you're right, like we do say no a lot, and people say like, oh, you guys are like, big, 120 people now, blah, blah. We're like, no, we could have been twice as big. We just like
mm,
we just knew that like it goes back a little to what we're saying. We don't want to grow for the sake of it and then not be able to take care of the clients that we have, and we don't want to grow for the money. We don't want to grow to like have like the have a really big agency. It's really about being able to continue doing what we do and with people that want to do what we do, and so as long as we see those opportunities, like we'll continue growing. But if it doesn't feel right, we just don't think we're going to be doing a service to us or the client. In the long term, they're not going to be happy. So we try to vet the opportunities that come, really, really well. I think some red flags could be about just the scope is really outsized in comparison to the budget, or the timing just doesn't set us up for success. We're not going to abandon something that we have going on in the building and everybody being so busy to now kind of like either pitch this thing or take on this project that we're not going to be able to do a good job because we're busy, and we're going to let the other clients down as well. So do we have the time? And it feels like the timeline set us up for success. And that's not to say that we cannot move fast. Believe me, like we can move fast, and we've done a lot in a short amount of time. But if it is really about are we going to put our best foot forward, then there is like what do they like from us? Like are we just kind of like, do they know who we are, and like why are we being invited? It goes both ways, by the way. I'm not like I don't mean to sound it like let us like we do that more because we kind of like want them to also feel like we are the right fit. It's about like, do you have this access to the decision makers, and will they be in the room? Like, what's the situation? So all those things are things that are just gonna like make us be able to do our jobs and be set up for success. So if those things are in place, great. We'll like give everything, and if not, we just think we're not the right fit, and it's just going to be a waste of time for everybody. So yeah.
yeah, I think it's smart. People, I think a lot of agencies have a grow at all costs, zero sum mentality game, and they just want to, make more money. And sometimes that's to the detriment of, like you said, it's like your people, your other clients, and, like that doesn't behoove anybody if you take on a project that you're not going to do really well with, or it's going to make people quit or make people tired and not be able to do the best work on the things that they're already working for. So I think it's a good lesson. I know it always is tempting because there's a lot of competition out there to say yes to everything, and that new business is sometimes hard to come by. But I think it defines you if you say no to something from time to time. So, all right. You've also talked about AI as being a creative partner. As AI begins to handle more of the execution, you've emphasized that the only currency left is the original idea. How should young art directors be training their brains differently in an era where software does more of the tactical, and really it's about the creative thinking more than ever now?
Sorry, and it chopped a little bit, the Wi-Fi. You said how directors, or how should our directors?
I would say I had young art directors, but it could be creatives in general. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think people are going to be a little less defined, perhaps, as like just being an art director, being a director, being like a writer, like obviously
Copywriter.
yeah, like I think you are like a creative person, and yes, you have like, if you're an art director and you have like a very good you have good taste and you have like good references, like you're gonna have something in mind that you're just gonna have like help putting, bringing it to life. Wasn't Photoshop this way, like people used to draw before, and now you have the tools. So I don't think it's much different. And I think it's just about like, get excited about having a lot of help to bring like your vision to life and in the best way possible, and do it. And also don't forget to exercise your own skills, because we get very lazy. AI can make you very lazy. And I think it's going to be really important for you to like not just count on it for everything, because there's a value to a lot of the the doing something by hand. We were talking to, um, I saw a presentation from PJ Pereira, who's like, just pioneer in this world. And he was kind of like bringing a bunch of good examples of like, you don't go, um, there's a reason that that you go buy something that's like kind of like handmade and is not just because like it's the artist behind it, is who did it, is the value. So yeah, I still think that it's really important for them to keep exercising that muscle and not just be like, all right, now my job is just writing some prompts.
Yeah, craftsmanship is a premium now. I just bought a kitchen coffee table from a guy on Instagram, and I was like, oh, I'm going to tell the story about this kitchen table. I'm going to keep it forever. And I got to give a guy in his garage money instead of a big box store or furniture store. And I just love that feeling. It's just so amazing. It's magic when you find something in the world that you really fall in love with, that, a human being, who put art and sweat and labor into it, created it as a small business owner, versus it was built by robots in a factory somewhere and sent to you. I think there's some real, there is a pendulum swift back, I think, to those types of things. So I love that idea. All right, Bianca. Well, it's been amazing to talk to you. Really appreciate you spending some time. I've been a big fan from outside, watching all the success that you guys have had since launching. So keep up the amazing work. If folks would like to follow along with your thinking and or learn more about the agency, where would you like to send folks?
Well, mischiefUSA.com. Oh, it was mischiefUSA.com. No, it's not Mischief. Oh my gosh, you're like great job, like matching up like the. I'll
get you. I'll get you in the show notes.
MischiefUSA.com is our website, but also like find me on LinkedIn. I try to keep up with the messages, and email Bianca at MischiefUSA.com.
I love it. And everybody, don't forget to wish Greg a happy birthday in the comments. He's having a good one back there. He's got, I think, a mariachi band or something in the background.
It's actually not Greg. It's Ed Gunn.
Ed Gunn.
Ed Gunn.
Let's go.
Yep. Yes.
Amazing. Well, thanks for reminding us of that. And for all of you at home, if this is the very first time you're seeing the show, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening to the show, that is how we find a larger audience organically, if you give us an honest review. And if there is a creative out there, or maybe a young person who wants to break into the advertising industry, maybe a client who's looking for some of that magical mischief thinking, don't forget to share the show. And with that, Bianca, I will wish you a happy day. And thanks for spending a little bit of time with the audience today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.